Hey everybody, Bonehead for the Bonehead Podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl 7 rosters Goblins. We are looking at every team in Blood Bowl 2020 right now and putting together some of the most fun and competitive rosters for Blood Bowl 7s. Now, we've looked at these rosters before, but we're redoing them in line with the new Blood Bowl 7s rules that landed in the Deathzone book. So, a few things have changed, some of the game rules have changed, and some of the build rules and inducements have changed as well. So what we're doing is we're kind of giving it a refresh, and quite frankly, taking 2 years of Blood Bowl 2020 experience, mixing it with a billion games of 7s, and that's how we're putting together these rosters. I am learning to love goblins, and 7s is a great place to start with them. So let's have a look at what you can get to the pitch. Okay, so why would you run goblins in 7s? Well, quite frankly, why would you run them in 11s? Exactly, because they're cool, because they're fun, because they can be swingy, and if your dice roll well, they can cause absolute carnage. Goblins are just brilliant fun. They are probably the most underdog of all the teams out there, but in 7s, they've got a few sneaky advantages. So, dodge and stunty on goblins is excellent, and in 7s, where there's no line of slaughter, and there's only 7 players on the pitch, you get a little bit more freedom. You are less likely to just automatically have goblins deleted from the line of scrimmage. And it's kind of the format where their movement 6, dodge 3+ agility is awesome. If you've got a human lineman on the 7s pitch and it's got 6 squares of movement, that is 1 down, 2 across, a diagonal. He's moving maybe 2-3 squares forward. You've got a goblin who takes a single edge dodge on a 3++. Okay, that's an 8 and a 9 chances of succeeding. That goblin's moving 6 squares forward. So actually, it's a massive difference, and it's a massive advantage. Now, the downside here, sure, is that goblins are vulnerable, but they've got dodge, so yeah, you're going to get 2 diced, but you do kind of have that Amazon armor to protect you. And armor 8+ really isn't that bad. So that's the baseline when it comes to goblins. They have the advantage that the entire team is made up basically of 45k little dodge stunty guys, and as long as you don't roll a 2 or a 1, you're absolutely golden. So mix in with that, I put carnage as one of the strengths of the teams. Okay. The team has a Thunderbird 2-like arsenal of choices. In Blood Bowl 7s, you get 0 to 4 positionals. Everybody else has to be a lineman. So on this roster, you've got 2 trolls, a chainsaw, a fanatic, a pogo, a doom diver, a disturbing presence dude. You've got and a bomber, right? You've got a ton of positionals, but you get to choose only 4 for your mission here, and it's really quite interesting. You've got trolls who, while really stupid and quite slow, Strength 5, Mighty Blow. When they get into the scrum, if you can manage to make a scrum happen in Blood Bowl 7s, trolls are going to do great work. And you've got the goblins there with good dodging ability to be able to get those assists. 2 assists on a troll, most of the time, is going to be a 3-die block. And a 3-die block with Mighty Blow is mostly going to be at least a stun on most targets. And that's where the Goblin Carnage comes in. If you take the hooligan, you are there to be dirty player, putting the boot in. You're going to have that, like I said, you're going to have the ability to dodge dudes out. You're going to have the ability to knock guys down. You've got a chance to take a bomber. You've got a chance to take a fanatic. I don't like the fanatic in 7s, but it is quite entertaining when it works out. But I do love the loony, okay? The chainsaw is just awesome. Now, stunty and dodge don't work in this edition the same way when it comes to the chainsaw, so you don't get to use that stunty ignore tackle zones bit to dodge into somewhere. But the cool thing about 7s is everything tends to be a little more open. So it's going to be quite hard to protect certain targets from a chainsaw. And movement 6, like I said, on this pitch is quite a lot of space. So you're going to be able to get a very good chainsaw blitz when you want to. Or even better, a great chainsaw ground blitz. And you can foul with him. You've got a pogoer here who gets a 3+ invulnerable leap skill, which is amazing. Yeah, sure, there's a 1 and a 2 when you don't get an integral skill to re-roll it. But we're going to have to try and find a way to get leader onto this team if you're running a pogo, just to keep that alive. Goblins have a lot of stuff that works out great if you roll well. If you roll badly, then goblins are going to get hurt, and actually, you know what? That's just stunty life, isn't it? Weaknesses, trolls. Yeah, vulnerable. Strength 2 dudes everywhere, except for the trolls and the fanatic, basically. And yeah, strength 2, although they've got dodge, they are stunty, so if that armor is broken, they are more likely to get goned, which is fine, and there's no sure hands on this roster either, so there's no kind of ball carrier player. What you do have is an interesting series of players that you can pick, build your roster, and honestly, most of the time, terrify your opponent. Okay, so let's kick off the rosters. What we're going to do is we're going to pick, like I said, some of the most competitive / fun ones we've got. And there's kind of a method to my madness here. We're going to start with the True Troll Saw Reroll. And in it, you have 2 trolls, a chainsaw, and a reroll. So 2 trolls, the chainsaw, backed up with 5 goblins and a reroll. That's 8 dudes on your roster. Takes you to 590k. There's a bit of flex in there, but we'll talk about that in a second. How this roster works, at the moment, I know there's flex, is you take those 2 trolls and the 5 goblins, and that's your team. But for 1 drive, you get that chainsaw. So you save him until you're kicking. And you just go troll left, troll right, goblins middle, chainsaw middle. Your opponent has got no choice except to wander towards you. And this is where that goblin kind of mischief and just ganging up on people can really play. You give your opponent the first shot. You can't not. But when they pass the turn, because this is 7s and there's only 1 blitz and there's no line of slaughter, you are in a place to create that mosh pit with those trolls, and then you've got the chainsaw to either mop up after a solid blitz or to blitz with that chainsaw and then move in a big guy to put next to the ball carrier. It is a potent defense that your opponent is going to look at and just really, really not want to take the fight to. Even if they're stacked with a Minotaur, okay, and they're going to go, no worries, I'm going to go blitz across the pitch and then go for it, and then 2-die blots the troll, okay, if that doesn't fail because they're rolling a lot of dice there, your counter-strike is cool story, bro. Chainsaw your Minotaur. And when the Minotaur is, what, a quarter of your 7s budget, the chainsaw is not, and that's such a good trade. So the downside here is that the chainsaw is a secret weapon, so it will be gone after 1 drive. Now, when I said there's a bit of flex in the roster, this team has 8 players, and the reason for that is you are budgeting for the fact that that chainsaw is only around for 1 game, and you want to have a 7th goblin there to back it up. If you are feeling bold, if you are feeling brave, then you can drop the 5th goblin and take a bribe instead. You have just enough money to take that 50k bribe. Then you kind of got 7 dudes, including the chainsaw, but you've got that bribe to keep him back for 1 more drive. You can't quite get everything you want, but actually this is a really fun way to play goblins on the pitch. You are going to get the frustration and the success of those trolls. When those trolls spend 2-3 turns doing exactly what you want them to do, you're going to think, this is this is cheap ogres, this is brilliant, and my chainsaw's mopping up the mess. On the other hand, there are going to be those games where the trolls are just like, nope, nope, and your chainsaw murders himself in the first thing, and you're sat there with a bribe in your pocket going, never mind, I guess I'll just foul. But that is the goblin life. Okay, so to move the roster along, we're going to drop the chainsaw and take a pogo instead. Now, in line with that, what we're doing is we're dropping a goblin too. So we're going from 8 players, including a secret weapon, to 7 players without a secret weapon here. So 2 trolls, that pogo, and 4 goblins. That gives you 7 dudes only, but it is backed up by that reroll. This is a really tough one. You've got 2 trolls who are chunky, right? They're strength 5, they're armor 10 plus, they've got regeneration, they are hard to beat. And you've got 4 goblins that can do stuff, okay? Goblins are okay, they are a bit vulnerable. So the biggest weakness of this roster is that you are going to probably lose 1 or 2 goblins, and you're going to be playing with only 5 guys. That can be really challenging when you've got some really stupid players. However, one of those players is the Pogo, and the Pogo is underrated in Blood Bowl 7s. Movement 7 and the Pogo stick ability just makes him super fast, and we've got that reroll on this roster to be able to use him and move him around. Now, it's only 1 reroll, and you know what? It's going to let you down. Sure, that's fine. That's how this works. Goblins live and die by the dice. We've had this chat, but what this roster does is it gives you 2 of your big boys to block, to smash, to get in there. You've got 4 goblins who are equally capable of being great scorers. Just ask a Renegades coach. And then you've got that Pogoer who is a super goblin, basically, to go and do stuff. Now, if you're looking at skills for these guys, it's going to be tier 3. So if you are running a league with them, it's going to be random skills all the time, and whatever you get is going to give you some really interesting experiences with the skills. So it's good fun with that. If you are playing an expansion league like 7 Super Series or a constructed event like a tournament, then tier 3 teams are likely to get a little bit better skills, whether it's more skills or just better access to them. So you're going to be able to have quite a few choices when it comes to skilling up your pieces. Now, we've moved away from the train saw, choo-choo, into the kind of Pogo scoring build, and this is kind of where we want to start talking about what we flesh our team out with. So the trolls, obviously a big guy is always good with block, but the troll in particular in 7s, because they tend to get isolated a little bit, will benefit from pro. Now, pro is a great skill in this edition. Basically, once you've rolled something, and basically a skill action or a block pool, you can roll a 3+, and if you do that, one of your dice can be re-rolled. So if the troll fails is really stupid on a 3+, he just gets to re-roll it. That's going to mean that troll is way more reliable. There's a couple of other great skills that works on them. Now, normally you're not likely to be blitzing with a troll, but in 7s with this roster where they are your most offensive pieces, then actually Juggernaut's not terrible if you're happy to be blitzing around with a troll. And remember, with a bit of friendship, it's always going to be a 2+, and that's not bad at all. Alternatively, you can put Brawler on them because they're likely to get into a bit of a mosh pit, and that's what you want to create when you've got these trolls. They can take on 2 linemen quite happily without any fear. They can just keep throwing those 2-die blocks, and Brawler's going to make them more effective at doing that. As is Grab, okay? Because Grab's going to allow you to take that block, even if it's a push, farm it off to the other troll. Farm it off behind you to be stomped on by a goblin. It's a really good use of a troll. And then you've got Strong Arm, which is going to help you throw goblins. And this is kind of where I was headed with this. Throwing teammates got worse after the FAQ. They cleared up the rules, and even though there are some exceptions, if you throw a goblin and your goblin hits any other player, it's going to be a turnover, no matter what. So defensive and offensive, throwing a goblin at a cage, at players, or paratrooping, as I like to call it, behind the line, is now really risky. So taking Strong Arm is going to make it a little bit better, because it means that you've got a better chance of landing, but it also won't affect where the dude's basically going to go. So you have to be really careful. If throwing teammates is your strategy, then watch out for that turnover piece. Now, on this roster, we've got the Pogo. Now, the Pogo, like every piece that starts with dodge, will benefit massively from having block. But the cool thing about this guy is he's going to be 3+ cage diving absolutely anywhere. So becomes actually a really effective sacker of the ball. It can jump in on a 3+ and then take a 2-die up. Block with block, or wrestle if he's got wrestle to pull down the ball carrier and cause an instant rumble in the jungle when it comes to dropping the ball. So the Pogo Stick is a really great defensive player as well as an offensive player. Taking block's going to keep him up and about. Taking wrestle's going to basically take your opponent out. That's the plan anyway. Or you can go the pro route. Now, all of these are secondary skills, but like I said, at tier 3 you're probably likely to have at least one. Taking pro, everything we said on the troll. Pro on this guy with leap, which is Pogo basically. I think I did a Theory Thursday on it. It's a 3+ to get a reroll on your 3+. It's not automatic, nothing is in Blood Bowl, but if you're chancing a 3+, then having a 3+ to chance and rechance the 3+ that you chanced already is probably alright for you. Now, regular skills though, Sure Feet, Sidestep are going to keep this guy active and fast, and that's kind of where you want to be. Well, then you've got the Line Goblins, who are underrated, because that dodge stunty movement 6 is actually really fast. Any random general is great fun on a goblin. I know you're going to roll shadowing and it's going to be a bit rubbish, but frenzy's fun. Dauntless is useful. Block, wrestle, sure hands, kick. They're all really useful skills for goblins. If you get to pick, then actually there's nothing wrong with the block goblin, but sure hands is probably what you want if you get a choice, either on him or the Pogo, to just be your primary ball carrier at that point. Sprint, sidestep just make the goblins faster. Now, when it comes to this roster, you have got passing access on basically every player type. So if you have a secondary, what you can do, and this is where this roster starts brewing out, and this is kind of what we're talking about with the fact that there's flexibility in these rosters, is you can either, on this roster, chuck leader on a dude, okay? And a troll with leader is not a bad thing. If I was going to have a leader player then actually an armor 10 plus regenerate dude is not, who's strength 5 is not a bad place to do it. Or you can chuck it on a goblin and actually theme it out a bit. The point is, if you do that, then you get choices. The first choice is to have 2 rerolls to keep your trolls and your pogo stuff doing stuff. The other choice is to drop that reroll, and then that gives you 120k to spend on other stuff for this team. At the moment, you're light on players. 120k can buy you 3 goblins. It can buy you a chainsaw and 2 goblins. It can buy you a chainsaw and a bribe and an assistant coach. That's the point at which the roster really opens up, but it depends on whether or not you've got that leader, because rolling a roster with goblins and no rerolls at all is fun, chaotic, and we've got that roster coming up for you, but it is not going to be even slightly consistent. Or you can drop a troll and get 115k from that and still keep that reroll. Now, obviously, if you're dropping down to 1 troll, it does 2 things. 1, open up the purse and the positional slot. You now get over 100k to spend buying other stuff, which is very exciting. On the downside, none of that other stuff is going to be as strong as a troll while not being a secret weapon. So you lose strength, but you gain accessories, basically. Okay, so the 1 troll mix reroll build, 1 troll, we've got a pogo, we've got a chainsaw, we've got 5 goblins and a reroll. So we've got 8 players on this roster. You've got that chainsaw, you've got that pogo to be your scoring threat, so you get to kind of do a little bit of everything. That's kind of what these mix reroll builds tend to be. This one only comes in at 550, and this is where your integral flexibility comes. You can take that bribe to give that chance of having the chainsaw back for a second go. You can pick up another goblin to pad out your roster. You can take 2 assistant coaches to try and win a reroll off the back of an brilliant coaching result on the kickoff table. Or you can take a desperate measure. Now, I've not talked about desperate measures for the goblins yet, but at 50k, a desperate measure inducement is new for Blood Bowl 7s. And basically, at the start of the game, you roll a d8 and you get something fun. Some of them are brilliant. You might get a wizard. You might get an automatic trip up. Some of them are okay. You might get the one that says you can foul multiple times. Well, you know what? With goblins, that's not terrible. And you've still got that to play with. Now, technically, I think the right thing for you to do here, if you're going to run this roster, is take that bribe to keep that chainsaw active. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players. You're going to lose a goblin to just, you know, death. And actually being able to bring that chainsaw back is going to keep you at 7 players for 1 more drive. You're going to get basically your money's worth out of that chainsaw. This is a great roster. This will definitely give you the feeling of running goblins. You've got the really stupid, but the upside of that strength of the troll. You've got the pogo doing silly things. You've got goblins running around. You've got a reroll, and maybe that leader reroll to kind of keep things active. And you've got a chainsaw to mess people up. Now, if you do want to put chainsaw skills on a guy, it's quite aggressive in 7s, bearing in mind that, you know, bribes, chainsaw, they don't tend to live long, let alone get sent off. But there's a whole ton of great skills. Dirty player with a chainsaw, +4 to fouls, basically, is absolutely brutal. Pro's good, block is going to keep him alive. There's a ton of great skills for a chainsaw. They're already great. But what if you do want to bin off that team reroll, rely on leader for your skills package, or just go vanilla dice and hope it's okay? Trolls & Co. is the roster that you can kind of brew up. Now, you are still capped at 4 positionals. So 2 trolls to give you the muscle, the pogo to be your scoring threat, and that chainsaw to be the guy who's going to mess up stuff. 3 goblins, that takes you to 7 players, and it only comes in at 465, and this is again where that flexibility comes. 465, you can afford a bribe for 50k, a desperate measure for 50k, and have 30k left over to buy an assistant coach. You can pick up a goblin in a desperate measure, 2 bribes to keep that chainsaw active. Probably the right thing to do here would be a bribe to keep your chainsaw and a goblin to keep your bench up. You've got both those trolls. Basically, it's the same as the last roster in that case, but you traded that reroll for a troll. So you've got bench, you've got that brutal strength, and you've got the chainsaw to run around and do stuff. There's 2 thoughts, isn't there, when running goblins? One is, I'm going to try and win with goblins and be consistent. The other is, I'm going to chuck stuff on the pitch and roll dice. That is this one. Or you can bin off all the trolls and go max weapons with a reroll. Pogo to do the scoring stuff. The Pogo's too good not to have in 7s if you can afford him, really. You've got the Fanatic. Now, I've not really talked about the Fanatic yet because at movement 3, your opponent is going to be able to evade this guy all day long in 7s. You start 6 squares away. But let me tell you, if you come up against a 7s team that is running the Fanatic, there is a bubble that you do not want to go into. The great thing about the Fanatic is if you deploy him in the middle of your line on defense, your opponent has got two choices. One is to chuck everything at him and go for an opening blitz to end the Fanatic. That is a vulnerability. The other thing that can happen is your opponent may not want to do that, may not have the ability to do that, so therefore they're going to have to stay away from the middle, and that's going to allow that Fanatic to just kind of come in, and with random movement it's going to be of mixed effectiveness, but kind of squidge your opponent towards the sideline, and that allows the rest of your team to do things. For example, the Chainsaw or the Goblin Bomber. Now the Bomber here is underappreciated or undervalued, understated really. It's just not as good as all the other bombers in the game. Bomber Dribble Snot is ridiculous. The Fungus Flingers are amazing. This guy is fine. But if you can give him a skill, give him accurate to make him a little bit better at blowing stuff up is great fun. Running Pass is brilliant on a Bombardier. Okay, throw the bomb, move my guy. That is so useful, especially in 7s where your numbers are lesser. You can throw the bomb and then redeploy him ready for the next turn. And with movement 6, that is a chunk of the pitch. I don't know why I put sidestep there. Well, actually, yeah, that's reasonable. People are going to go for the bomber, right? So actually having that sidestep to be able to choose where he's going is going to help you set up for your next throw and maybe even lead your charger into a position where you can block him away from the bomber to get rid of that extra -1. Alright, that's reasonable. Now, this roster's got billion players, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a reroll. I've put 8, but it is 9. Comes in at 550, so you can buy 1 bribe. There's a ton of flex. This is going to be a really interesting and fun experience. The Fanatic could be great. It could be a disaster. The Chainsaw could be great, could be a disaster. And guess what the Bomber could be? Great, or it could be a disaster. But that is the way Goblins roll. I love it. It's really fun. And if you want to get your weapons to the pitch and see what they can do, this is going to be a really useful way to do it. But you won't win. Okay, if I'm playing Goblins in a tournament where there is a skill set that I can get at least 1 double to buy leader, I think I'd struggle not to go with Trolls and Co here. Even if that tournament doesn't allow desperate measures, what this roster does give you is 7 goblins, 7 players standard. You buy the 8th goblin, you buy that bribe, you buy that assistant coach. You've got 1 leader reroll, you've got both those trolls to be a big threat. You've got the Pogo to do the scoring, you've got your Chainsaw with a bribe to be around ready to kind of mop up the piece. This is going to give you that goblin experience without having to lose one of your positional points to a bomber who's fine but only for a bit, and a Fanatic who's great but only in the right circumstances. Goblins, their core roster does not shine in 7s because it's so separated. But I think this is probably the best combination of fun and opportunity to win that I can think of when it comes to Goblins. And if someone was like, hey, do you want a game of 7s? Do you want to run Goblins? I'd probably go with this one if there was any kind of skill package. If not, then I would probably go with 1 troll and the reroll build with the positionals. Again, the Chainsaw is too fun and the Pogo is just too good. Having rerolls is going to be really useful, but hey, it's 7s. You don't always need them. Anyway, let me know what you think of Goblins in 7s and which roster you'd run. The cool thing is, there's a load of positionals. We didn't even get to talk about the guy who fouls a lot. Again, it's because he's twice the price of a standard Goblin, and those numbers are so important when it comes to 7s. But Goblins are great fun. There's some great models out there for them, and 7s is the best way to play Blood Bowl. So, fun team, fun game. More Blood Bowl is more better. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy dodging. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.